Hello YouTubers, this is the first of many videos that offer solutions to the problems we face in both domestic and foreign policy. I'm going to tell you up front that my foreign policy is far different than anything you've heard from establishment type imperialists or from non-interventionists. In fact, my foreign policy is probably far different than anything you've heard before. As hinted at in several recent videos, my foreign policy is fairly simple. It is imperialism, but to use imperialism for good. It's a far different kind of imperialism than what exists in our current foreign policy. The problem isn't imperialism. The problem is that our leaders no longer know right from wrong. I'm going to show you that we can use imperialism for good. One way we can use imperialism for good is by solving the Middle East crisis. This video explains how. Let's describe the scenario and who the key players are first. Most agree that the key players are Israel, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. It is these three countries that are vying for regional power and cultural influence in the Middle East. After all, Israel is Jewish, Saudi Arabia is Sunni and Wahhabi, and Iran is Shia. Even though Saudi Arabia and Iran are both Islamic, they hate each other. Both of them want to be regional powers and can't share power. Further west, Israel is a very small country, but because it is backed by the United States, it is the dominant military power in the region. Despite its size, Israel contains many cultural and religious sites important to all three Abrahamic faiths, and because Israel is extremely militaristic, Israel receives a lot of criticism, particularly in relation to their treatment of the Palestinians. Since Israel is backed by America, America also receives lots of criticism. Israel is basically viewed as the 51st state of America. For example, Iran has referred to America as the Great Satan, and Israel as the Little Satan. But the people of Iran don't really hate America. However, Iran views the current American government as an aggressor. You can't blame them, can you? We did overthrow their government in the past, put a dictator in their lands. We demonized them, then surrounded their nation with military bases. However, focusing on the problems isn't really focusing on the solution, is it? But realize that what was once used for evil can also be used for good. So who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? Even though America currently supports Saudi Arabia is the enemy. How many Iranian terrorists are there? Well, even though America might view the Iranian government to be terrorists, they aren't. But how many terrorists come from Saudi Arabia? Where did the terrorists that attacked us on 9/11 come from? Which nation killed a United States president and journalist? And where does most of that terrorism come from? From my understanding, most of it comes from the Wahhabi sect of Islam, many who live in Saudi Arabia. And even without the terrorism, Saudi Arabia is the worst offender of human rights in the world. How does Saudi Arabia treat its women? And Christians can't even build churches in Saudi Arabia. So let's be clear. Saudi Arabia is the enemy, not Iran. While Iran may be a theocracy, it's fairly tolerant, especially when compared to Saudi Arabia. No, Iran isn't America, nor is it perfect, but no country is perfect. America's made more than enough mistakes, after all. And the same thing applies to Israel. Israel is far from perfect. But keep in mind, I'm defining who the enemies are. I'm not trying to point out the faults of allies. Pointing out the faults of Israel and Iran does nothing to foster a good relationship between them. Solving the Middle East crisis is as simple as changing the relationship between Iran, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. America and Iran would become great friends again. Israel and America would remain great friends, while Israel would foster new friendships with Iran. Both Iran and Israel would become more powerful, acting as a check against Saudi terrorism. We would be a force for good in the Middle East, rather than the oppressors we are now, except in Saudi Arabia and nations that support Saudi Arabia. But that's exactly as it should be. They are our enemies, after all. And a more powerful Israel working with a more powerful Iran is more than enough to keep the Saudis in check. While I won't describe the deals I would make or the exact process, know that I would improve relations with Iran and Israel and cut all ties with Saudi Arabia, possibly leading to war. I won't describe the process because it's the kind of thing that needs to be talked about privately with Iran and Israel if I were ever elected. Thanks for your time. If you like this video, please show your support by subscribing.